Alright, so talking about number 17 on the test review. This is going to be a margin of error question. I've had a few people ask how they're supposed to know that this is margin of error versus z-score. Um, Question-wise, z-score questions are always asking you to compare and just give an answer, meaning it'll ask you who did better, or who's in the top 5% of their class, like 15, things like that. Whereas the margin of error question, notice that it is stating an answer to that question already, where it's saying that this college is already trying to state that they are better, and then the question being asked to you is, do you think they're correct? A z-score question usually will not ask you to agree or disagree with an already made statement. But math-wise, if you look at 17 closely, you don't have a full set of two different amounts of data. You are given two different means. You are given a national mean as well as the college specific mean. But you are not given you are not given two standard deviations. You're only given the standard deviation for the national mean. If I don't give you a standard deviation for the college's mean, how in the world would you be able to find a z-score for it? So you can tell off the question some, but if you're ever worried, just look at the information you've been given, because a standard deviation cannot be just made up and come up with by yourselves. So if you don't have two standard deviations, you can't do two z-scores, which means it must be margin of error. Okay? The way you find margin of error is you're supposed to take 2 times your standard deviation, and then you are supposed to divide that by the square root of the sample size. So, first off, 2 times the standard deviation, in this case, would be 230. It's supposed to divide that by a square root, so the 2 in the square root will always be there. It's the 230 that you have to find for yourself to plug in. And then you have to divide by the square root of the sample size. You just gotta look for the number that comes after it says sample most of the time, but it will always be the smaller group, right? So the population in this case would be everyone in the nation that took the test. The sample would just be the 300 students that this college surveyed or took their scores of. Okay? Again, 2 times the standard deviation divided by the square root of your sample size. So 2 times 230 would be 460. If you divide that by the square root of 300, looks like you would get around 26.558. Or we can just say 26.56. Either way. Okay? This is your margin of error. Understand it does not solve the question that you're asked here. Because the question you're asked is, while all of this is true, we can see that the college scored 300 for its mean, whereas the national mean is 1200. And the question is, do they have a right to say that they really are better, that their students, their freshmen really are scoring better than the national average? So what we're going to do is we need to take the national mean, which you said was 1200. We need to add 26.56 and we need to subtract 26.56 to figure out our range of what is within acceptable mistakes within our margin of error and what is more than that. So adding is pretty straightforward because it's 1200 and you're just bringing in 26 to that into the zeros basically. The subtraction may take a little bit more, may take a calculator to figure out, just depends on how much you want to do in your head. But if you do it correctly, you should get 1173.44. This right here is our range that we have found from our margin of error. Any score found in between 1173.44 and 1226.56, it doesn't matter if it's greater or lesser than 1200. It's within the margin of error, so it's really just a rounding error. It's just what happens when you have a smaller group. However, this college had a score of 1300. 1,300 is certainly outside this margin of error, as it's greater than 1,226. So since it's outside the margin of error, this college is correct in being able to say that their freshmen score better, because that is a substantial increase. I don't know how to write college, apparently. But that is a substantial increase compared to the national average. So their freshmen really are scoring better. So it's up to you how wordy you want to be with that, but the main point is you just need to respond in the affirmative that the college is able to say what it's trying to imply.